Hey everyone, I'm Brandy and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about fracking and the issues revolving around the process. Most of you have probably heard of the term fracking at least once before, especially if you live on the North Shore. However, a lot of people don't really know exactly how fracking is done. The process is fairly simple. It's basically they drill a hole about 9,000 feet into the ground vertically, and then at around the 9,000 foot mark, they start drilling horizontally to accommodate for several surface sites. After the well's been drilled, it's then lined with cement, and the holes are drilled into the horizontal portion of the well. Then a liquid mixture of 90% water, 9.5% sand, and about 0.5% of chemical additives are pumped through at really high pressures to create small fractures or microfractures in the shale above the well site, and those fractures are held open by the sand that's included in the liquid mixture. As the microfractures, after the microfractures have been made, the mixture is then pumped back out of the well and the natural gas follows. And they'll do that process a few times of pumping the liquid in and out to make sure that they get all of the natural resources out of the shale. It sounds like a pretty easy way to get the natural resources we need, right? Well, it's a simple process, but like all or most oil extraction processes, it has some pretty serious consequences. Since fracking has minimal oversight and there's very little research into the effects of fracking, thousands of people have been getting sick or even dying, and the environment has even been impacted. There are several reports that show that fracking has contaminated people's drinking water with deadly chemicals. Also, it has polluted the air quality in the areas surrounding fracking sites, causing respiratory illnesses and damaging the atmosphere. And finally, fracking has induced several tremor episodes and earthquakes in seismically active areas. Water contamination due to fracking has garnered the most attention out of all those issues I just mentioned. The reason fracking is believed to pollute drinking water is because the wells are often drilled through aquifers that supply a lot of areas with water. Obviously, the fracking industry has denied this, but there are lots of studies that prove otherwise. For example, in May 2015, the National Academy of Sciences conducted a study to determine if there were any dangerous chemicals in the aquifer in Bradford County, Pennsylvania. Bradford County is also known as the most fracked county in Pennsylvania. The team reported that a mixture of organic compounds were found in the aquifer and one of the county's drinking water wells. Their findings state, and this is a quote from their report, the chemicals, including a known rodent carcinogen, in the Bradford County, Pennsylvania aquifer migrated laterally in the soil from fracking operations into a public drinking water aquifer. The signature of the compounds were similar to those of the fracking company in the area. They explained that this contamination was a result of stray natural gas and drilling that was driven approximately 1 to 3 kilometers along shallow to intermediate depth fractures to the aquifer used as a potable water source. And at the same time, in May 2015, 100 California government officials sent a letter to Governor Brown requesting a statewide moratorium on all fracking operations due to water contamination. Industry documents revealed that billions of gallons of deadly amounts of toxic fracking wastewater was dumped directly into California aquifers, which supply both drinking water and farming irrigation. The Center for Biological Diversity tested several aquifers and drinking water sites and reported high levels of arsenic, a known carcinogen, and other toxic chemicals, including thallium, which is used as rat poison, They found these in these aquifers. And as if drinking these deadly chemicals aren't bad enough, there have been reports of fracking-induced air pollution. In January 2015, the Environmental Health Perspective conducted a survey to determine the health issues in Washington County, Pennsylvania residents in close proximity to fracking sites. Out of 492 people in 180 randomly selected households, they found that 39% of residents reported respiratory illnesses. And furthermore, in a study conducted by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association in February 2012, they found that in the Denver-Julesburg Basin area, 4% of natural gas is being leaked into the atmosphere. That means that all those hazardous chemicals and gases are being released into the atmosphere, and that could be greatly contributing to climate change and global warming. And, you'd believe that the chemicals would be the most dangerous aspect of fracking, but there's another consequence that may as well be just as hazardous. It was reported by the United States Geological Survey that the U.S. is more seismically active now than it's ever been in history. Also, in November of 2015, it was reported that by the Oklahoma Geological Survey that Oklahoma has more earthquakes than any seismically active area in the whole world. They also determined in April 2015 that the uptick in earthquakes were a product of drilling, weren't a product of drilling, but of injection of water into disposal wells. NPR explains that it's not the drilling that's causing these earthquakes, but it's the injection of the wastewater being injected into the disposal wells. Fracking has caused a plethora of health and environmental issues by contaminating water supplies and air quality, and disturbing areas that were fairly seismically inactive before. With all this information, it would seem obvious that there needs to be more research put into the fracking process and its effects on the surrounding areas and people. With all of these health and environmental issues, you would think that something would be getting done about it, but there's not. So obviously we need a little bit more government oversight of these and a little more regulation of these fracking processes to get rid of all of these problems, and we need to research a little bit more.